We had the question whether you can replace the squat in Mike Mentzer's consolidation workout with a leg press. And also, is it going to have the same effect?
Sean, yes, the short answer to the question is yes, you can indeed replace the squat with the leg press. The second part of the question is the leg press as effective as the squat? We're going to, in the rest of this video, unpack some of the key aspects to consider. So please stay tuned for these details.
There's no exercise that you absolutely have to do. Muscle currency is tension, and that's the crucial fact.
So if that resistance comes from free weights, maybe body weights or machine weights, or even resistance bands, does that have any impact, or does it make a difference to the muscle?
Sean, in principle, it doesn't matter. The muscle doesn't know which implement you are using. As long as that implement induces effective tension on the muscle, you will have a hypertrophy effect or a strengthening effect. One can argue that not all machines are made equal and that not exercises are made equal. There are differences in loading curves and strength curves, but we won't go into those details. Our focus in our video today would be to focus on comparing the squat with the leg press. Exercise selection or exercise prescription should be based on the individual. We refer that as personalization. And there are some factors that we need to consider. One example would be the anatomy of the individual and also the injury history of the individual.
I think yes, especially in my case when it comes to flexibility might even play a role as well.
Yeah, we're on the older side here, Sean, but true, flexibility is a factor. For example, in the squat, ankle mobility is a big factor to take care of, and if you haven't got good ankle mobility, it will be a problem in your total squat pattern. So Sean, in terms of anatomy, we are not all built the same. We obviously differ in terms of height, length, width, in terms of limb length, all those things differ, and that may influence the selection of an exercise. There are individuals, no matter how often they practice the squat, they just feel uncomfortable, and the way they are built definitely has got an effect with that. So squat is an excellent exercise, as we will see later, but it certainly isn't an exercise for everyone. We need to acknowledge that fact. In terms of other factors, you've mentioned the flexibility, that plays a very important part in it, in exercise selection, and if you've got a limitation in terms of range of motion, something to consider. It may be anatomical, it may be due to a previous surgery. That's the other thing we need to consider. Take that in account, your history of injuries. If you've got back problems, if you had previous surgeries, those things should obviously be considered when selecting an exercise.
So if we compare the squat and the leg press, both would give good quad development. However, the squat does involve more muscle groups.
Sean, yes, you are absolutely correct. The squat, you can't say it's a full body exercise, but it really taxes so many muscles and systems that it is an all-encompassing exercise. So if we look at the squat, it definitely hits the quadriceps, the quads, the glutes, all the butt muscles, and then the hamstrings and lower back muscles. Added to that, it places a lot of stress and strain on the neural system, so it definitely has got a big neural adaptation effect. And if anybody has ever done high rep squat sets, they would know that it also taxes the cardiovascular system. After a high rep squat set, you are completely wasted, given that it's a heavy enough weight, obviously. So it definitely taxes all those systems. In addition to that, it's all the stabilization muscles, the core, and it's all those muscles that never really get trained if you do an isolation exercise. So that's why the squat really addresses all these areas.
So of course, being a free weight exercise, the squat also requires more balance what is missing in the leg press?
Well, I think the first obvious fact is that the leg press is a supported exercise, as opposed to the squat. It's a free body exercise that brings with it some pros and some cons. There's no doubt with the leg press you'll also get very good quad development. The hamstrings are involved, the glutes are involved, there's no doubt around that. But seeing that you support it, the back muscles are not as involved as with the squat. Also in terms of the balance, the core muscles, stabilization muscles, with the leg press definitely not, because of the stabilization of the support. With the squat you've got all of those factors.
If you do have a choice and you are still healthy, fit, no injury issues, the squat would maybe be the preferred option?
I think again, I agree with what you're saying. I think it's context specific, like we said, and it comes back to personalization. If you compare the two exercises head to head, I think most trainees out there, most coaches will agree that if you have the luxury of having a choice, you would go for the squat for all the reasons that have been mentioned. If you haven't got the ability to squat for whatever of the reasons, anatomy, previous histories, whatnot, the leg press is a very worthy replacement exercise. And again, we said in the beginning, there is no exercise you absolutely have to do. There are people who have developed tremendous quad and leg development without doing squats. So you select an exercise that suits your personal requirements. But the second principle, consistency, is key. If we get into the weeds of comparing exercises, we may be missing the forest for the trees. Select an exercise that you feel comfortable with and perform that exercise consistently. That is a much better option than trying to do the ultimate exercise by doing it very infrequently. So consistency is king.
So train hard,
Train consistently
and think muscles.